There you go.
It says record. There we go. It says we're live. And hello. It's Tuesday. It's 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock where we are in Costa Rica, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, midnight in Dublin, 1 a.m. through most of Europe, 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, somewhere around 3 in the afternoon in New Zealand, and it's Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. Really great to be with you, as always. This is the most fun thing I do, talking to my computer, is doing it with you the first Tuesday of every month, because I'm joined by Michelle Ross, our Director of Clinical Services, and we always have a blast doing this. So hello, Michelle.
Hi, Dr. Tom. I'm always happy to be here, and we do have a
great. It's always so much fun. So this is a Q&A, and you can just throw your questions up there, and we'll just roll with them. But Michelle, do we have a couple that we've saved that we couldn't get to last time?
I'm just going to touch on NeuroZoomer Plus, one of my favorite tests. Did a NeuroZoomer Plus interp today, and I so often hear, Dr. Tom, this like almost fear, like, oh, I'm so scared about my results.
Right.
And I just view those results as so empowering, because I learned from you that we don't get these neurodegenerative issues in our 60s and 70s and 80s. We get them in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, and it just takes decades of killing off brain cells before we develop symptoms and then get a diagnosis. And
I started talking about that a few years ago, as you know, and I've got this thing that I would say that just makes so much sense, and you're just bringing it right back up again, that most of us know someone that had a heart attack and survived, and they changed their diet, started exercising, they look better than they've looked in years. Most of us know someone who was diagnosed with cancer and went through the recommended treatments and put it in remission, and they're doing good. No one knows anyone diagnosed with a brain degenerative disease that's now doing good. And it terrifies us. And so the idea of even testing to see if there's a problem with the brain is scary for all of us. But we have to get past that, because Blue Cross Blue Shield came out last year and said there's a 406% increase in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 45-year-olds in the last 3 years, from 2004 years, from the 2013 to 2017, 406% increase in 30 to 45-year-olds. So yes, it starts decades earlier, and even earlier now than ever before, because of all the toxins. And people are scared to death to talk about this. They try to avoid it. You're absolutely right, Michelle, and that just doesn't cut it. I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off, because it's a favorite theme of mine, is to make people aware that we can do something about this. So please continue.
Yeah, that's just exactly right. And I just feel like we've got to have the Wheat Zoomer and the NeuroZoomer Plus together, because so much of this is rooted in gluten and wheat, right? And so often I see many of the things, antigens, that elevated antibodies on NeuroZoomer Plus come down when somebody has a clean Wheat Zoomer, right? Yes. It's just empowering to know what is like causing you to be unwell. And I remember the first time that you said to somebody, congratulations, you're a mess. And I remember saying to you, that's so offensive. I can't believe you said that. And you're like, what do you want? You feel terrible? You want to have clean test results? And I was like, it's so true, right? So when people are coming, they're investing this money because they feel awful. It's awesome to know, like, if the infection panel is just off the chart, right? And it's going down the page, to know, like, wow, there's so many viruses that are going on here in strep, that if we focus on eliminating those, evicting those from the body, right, this person is likely going to feel so much better. So it's so empowering when we test, don't guess, and we actually know what we're dealing with, right? Absolutely. Otherwise, people are just told repeatedly, it's in your head. It's in your head.
It's stress. It's just stress. It's in your head. Well, it is in your head, but it's inflammation that's in your head. So the question is, where's the inflammation coming from? And that's what the NeuroZoomer Plus tells us, is how much inflammation is there in the brain. And there's so much more than just the NeuroZoomer Plus, but it gives us a monitoring tool to begin with, and then to target specific therapies, or more often, specific lines of investigation to continue down. For example, if the antibodies you have elevated on the NeuroZoomer Plus are all viruses, cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes virus, if it's all viruses, then we know we have to support your immune system in dealing with viruses, right? So it gives us a clue, more than a clue, it gives us a direction on where we go next. I'm going to do a couple of shout outs here because it's Facebook Live and because it's our ball game and we can do it. You know, one of my mentors was Dr. George Goodhart, the founder of Applied Kinesiology. And on Sunday mornings, he'd always start with a prayer. He'd say, if you'll bear with me, please, there's probably someone who can do it better than I, but, and then he'd say, dear Lord God, Heavenly Father, please give strength to our hands, clearness to our brains, and openness to our hearts to help our fellow man. In thy name, amen. And then he would say, and if anyone doesn't like it, it's too bad, it's my football. So this Facebook Live is our football. So I'm doing a shout out because I love that you guys are out there. Antoinette's here from Maine. Hi, Antoinette. Errol's here. Nuno's from Portugal. Hello, Nuno. Kathleen's here. Laura Danaher. Hey, Laura. Thanks so much. Kat's here from Kentucky. Says there are so many pillows out there. It's so hard to choose the best one. What do you recommend? Memory foam, gel, etc. That's really a good question, Kat. And from a musculoskeletal perspective, you guys remember that in the book, You Can Fix Your Brain, we talk about the pyramid of how to look at health. Pyramid has 4 sides: structure, biochemistry, emotional, spiritual, and electromagnetic. And you have to deal with all 4 sides if you want to be healthy. Well, on the mechanical side or the structural side, pillows are really important. And it's the goal of a pillow in the big picture is to support your neck in a healthy way when you're sleeping. So if I'm laying on my left side on the bed and I've got just a big pillow that does this, I'm sleeping like this. What do you think that does to the right side of my neck, right? Or if you're sleeping on your back with a pillow, it does this. What do you think that does to your shoulders and your neck? So the goal with a pillow is that you support the curve in your neck. From a side view, there's a curve to our neck. At the bottom of the neck, it goes forward in a reverse C-shaped curve. Most of us have lost that curve, and the goal is over a couple of years to get the curve back, which means your head is back over your shoulders again, as opposed to your head being out in front of your shoulders. So can one pillow do that? Possibly, but more likely, you know, it depends on what the starting point is for a person's neck. Have they lost the curve? And when they're not thinking about their posture, their head's out in front of their shoulders. I'm exaggerating, but you know, it's like this, and the shoulders are like this. What is your starting point? Because it may be you're going to have to go through 2 or 3 pillows over the course of 2 or 3 years to get there, and you have to start with a soft pillow. That what I've always told patients is just take a towel, roll up a towel, put some rubber bands around it. Lay on your back with a pillow under your knees, so the knees are bent, takes the pressure off your low back, and a towel under your neck, rolled up with rubber bands so it doesn't collapse during the night. And you might find that's actually kind of nice. Okay. And then after a while, it'll seem like it's not giving you enough support. Then you want to go to an orthopedic pillow. What that means is that there's a curve in the pillow that goes underneath your neck to push your neck forward when you're laying on your back, So you're stretching the muscles and ligaments. There's 7 muscles and tendons from the muscles between each 2 bones. There are 7 bones. That's 49 muscles in the neck. And if your head is in a position with your head in front of your shoulders, I'm exaggerating, but if it's like this to begin with, you've got to change, you have to stretch out 49 tiny little muscles. That's going to take you 6 months to a year. So start with a towel rolled up with rubber bands to keep it together. Well, how big a towel? It depends on how stiff your neck is. You know, you want it to be not super comfortable, but you want it to be lifting your neck up a little bit when you're laying on your back, just enough to where, okay, that's okay, that's okay. So you're taxing it just a little bit. And in a few weeks always with a pillow under your knees. And in a few weeks, you may have to get a little more towel rolled up so that it's a bigger bump lifting up your neck. And then you can go to the problem with memory pillows and foam pillows is that it takes a memory of where your neck currently is. And you don't want the memory of where your neck currently is. You want to be rehabilitating your neck to have more of the C-shaped curve. From the bottom of the neck, it comes forward and back, you know, a reverse C-shaped curve. And it's going to take you a number of months to a year or so to do that. So start with a towel and then move towards orthopedic pillows. Never mind the foam pillows. They're comfortable, they're really comfortable, but they don't make orthopedic changes. Michelle, anything you want to add to this about pillows?
I mean, it's a great reminder. I forgot about the towels. I just think that if there's a way to err on the side of having it as non-toxic as possible, because we're spending hopefully 8 hours with it.
Absolutely.
Right? And some of these materials are pretty toxic. So just erring on that side is really awesome.
Errol has a question. My question is about DNRS, the limbic system rewiring system. At what stage do you recommend starting this type of program, before or while detoxing, healing a leaky gut in combination with EMDR, or after all of this? I'm afraid I'm not familiar with what DNRS is. So,
Dynamic neural retraining system. I'm a huge dynamic neural retraining system, and I'm a huge fan of this program.
Good. You go.
With chronic illness, it impacts on the limbic system in our brain, and this is all based in research. And so Annie Hopper took all of the research on rewiring our brain and created a 6-month program. And it's different than all of the other things we do in functional medicine with the testing and the supplements and the lifestyle changes. It's a program where you commit to 4 15-minute training segments a day after you do a 5-day training seminar. And you can do it, it's all online now. And they teach you things that are just so powerful. And I wish I would have known in 2001 when I first got sick, but it wasn't even available then. Now there's just so much more information about all of this. But sometimes these chronic illnesses can be like post-traumatic stress at the cellular level. And this program teaches you about pathways of the past. You know how we've all done the thing, Dr. Tom, where you say something stupid and you just hit play, rewind in your head, and you just worry like, I can't believe I said that. Nobody else is even thinking about it, but we torture ourselves with it, right? And they just teach you tools to not do that, and ways to just, when we're in this funk, because it's hard when you go to bed in pain, you wake up in the middle of the night in pain, you wake up in the morning, it's hard to plan stuff with family or friends because you don't know if you're going to feel good enough. And just things like to listen to happy music, joyful jams, you know, get a playlist, dance around the house, watch YouTube videos of laughing babies. There's just so many nuggets in there. There's actually something on, it used to be before Zoom, we could do these video consults. What's that program called? I don't know why I'm spacing on the name of it.
Skype?
But Skype. They have this whole like Skype thing where people get together and just laugh. And you literally, it's like hundreds of people from all over the world, thousands of people. The little pictures of everyone are so tiny, and you can't help but giggle because it's just so silly, right? But that laughter is the best medicine, is so healing. But it's just a really powerful program, and I just can't think of a wrong time to do it.
Oh, that's perfect. So the question was, when do you recommend they start? Before detox, after, or during?
So it's totally something that is just going to enhance. In fact, I just talked to a client last week and I'm like, wow, you look amazing. What's different? And she's like, I've been doing DNRS for 3 months, and I hadn't talked to her in the previous 3 months. And her whole countenance, like there was like this just lightness coming from her. And it was just so amazing to hear stories. And it's just story after story. Like somebody started it and they had this burning tingling. I mean, they had been chronically ill for ages, but it had taken on this new symptom where they couldn't take a hot shower, a hot bath. It would cause like this burning sensation under the skin, like torture. And they didn't even want to tell their family like this symptom was now added to the list, because they just really thought that now they were going to be officially labeled crazy. And within 4 days of starting the program, I was getting a little teary about this because it's just so profound when people have healing at that level. It had been totally gone. And they said, you know, the night before that they had laid in a hot bathtub for the first time in over a year. So it's things like that, you know. I mean, another client had this burning sensation on her tongue that was just torture. And after starting DNRS, it was totally gone. So some of these symptoms that we think, you know, is this from leaky gut? Is this from gluten? It's from damage to the limbic system in the brain.
Yeah, that's marvelous. Just marvelous. You know, as you were saying that, it reminded me of a book from 2005 that I've recommended so many times by Norman Cousins called An Anatomy of an Illness. And he was diagnosed with a debilitating, life-threatening autoimmune disease, and his doctors weren't helping. So he said, forget this. He noticed a friend came to visit him in the hospital, and they were just laughing their heads off, and he felt so much better afterwards. So he said, I want more of this. So he wouldn't allow anyone in the room that didn't make him laugh. Nurses, doctors, and he checked out of the hospital, went home. He watched Marx Brothers, Three Stooges movies, and he put his debilitating autoimmune disease into remission just by having so much laughter around him. So your suggestions are just wonderful, you know, about the Skype thing, about and watching YouTube videos of laughing babies, and it's a great concept, great concept.
They teach you to not discuss all the symptoms. I mean, obviously you do when you meet with your healthcare practitioner, but then they recommend doing a round afterwards to kind of cleanse it and detox it, but just to call it an it and not put so much energy, because it's difficult when you have awful insomnia for your family and friends who care about you to not be like, how'd you sleep last night? You know, and then you're in this like, I'm a sick person mindset, right? But to just really, you send out this letter to your family and friends that it's like, we're not going into this negative stuff anymore. You know, we're talking about what we want out of life versus what the current reality is.
You know, that's a quote that I've used a number of times now from Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's time to stop living out of your memories of the past and rather your vision of the future. So it's saying the same kind of thing, but what you're describing here are techniques to help you and guide you in that process. Sounds great.
Yeah, she uses Dr. Joe Dispenza's research and recommends his books in her program.
Here's a question from Fajala, F-J-A-L-A, Fajala. I'm strongly suspecting that I'm having symptoms from inhaling gluten in the air at my parents' home. Is this even possible? Well, yes, of course. It's called Baker's asthma, and it's from inhaling wheat from the air, the dust in the air. You bet it's possible. And that's a highly sensitive person whose immune system is just vigilant trying to protect you. But yes, it is possible and fairly common to see. Cynthia says, or given antidepressants. I don't know what that's about, but hello, Cynthia. Kat says, amen. Yes. Carrie's here from New Jersey. Debbie says, I had an ENT appointment, that's ear, nose, and throat appointment this week for my chronic stuffy nose. The camera down my nose showed inflammation. The doctor gave me a steroid spray. Is there an alternative or additional thing I can do to treat the inflammation? Really good question, Debbie. So do you think that the inflammation in the lining of your nostrils is from a deficiency of steroids? It's not. And steroids can certainly help you feel a little better temporarily, but the question is, where is it coming from? Where is the inflammation coming from? Michelle, do you want to elaborate on that one, please?
Yeah, so I see this so often. I mean, people suffer for decades with seasonal allergies, or they're just, dealing with this chronic sinusitis, post-nasal drip. And there's always a root cause, always, right? And it's figuring out what that root cause is to dampen the inflammatory response to allow the body to heal. And it can be different for everyone. There can be something called MARCONS, and it's an abbreviation, and it's like infections up in your sinuses. I've seen it caused by gluten, other viruses, infections in the body, various imbalances, LPS, lipopolysaccharide antibodies. There's so many various root causes. You have to figure out what your root cause is. But there's so many people that I've worked with that they're like, so weird. I didn't realize, but I made it through this entire spring without any seasonal allergies. And I suffered with it my whole life. And it's like, how awesome is that? Like we healed the inflammation in your body, and now your body doesn't have to react to everything it comes in contact with.
Right. Very cool. Very, very cool. Let's see what the next comment is here.
See the one about the MRI?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I don't have my glasses.
I had MRI with and without contrast of neck and full spine, and results were straightening of cervical spine seen with muscle spasm. Super. Please help me understand what this means and what I can do. I have lots of neck discomfort, and I think it might contribute to headaches and dizziness.
You bet it might. And congratulations, if that's all they found, that's great. That means no spinal stenosis, meaning the opening between the bones where the spinal cord goes down. There's not a lot of calcium building up in there. No bone spurs, no disc problems. That's all great. So what you have is really just, according to the MRI, a functional problem with a straight neck. And that's what we talked about at the beginning about pillows. That certainly can help. But the question, where does it come from? And for most of us, it's our lifestyle that we hold a lot of tension in our shoulders and in our upper back area. Sometimes it's a reflex from lungs. If you were a smoker, your lungs can be sending messages back into your spine and into the muscles around your spine, tightening them up. Is called a visceral somatic reflex. But usually with a situation like yours, massages on a regular basis can help a lot. And that doesn't mean once every 3 months. To test it out, you find a good massage therapist, meaning one that you hear recommendations about. And I would see them twice a week for 2, 3, or 4 weeks and see if it makes a significant impact on how much you're suffering within a few weeks. If it does, and twice a week, because you do it once a week and you get all relaxed, then you have a whole 7 days of lifestyle tightening you up again. So you get in there a couple of times a week for 3 or 4 weeks and see if your headaches are less, if your neck pain is less. Still comes once in a while, but it's diminished. If it's diminished, you know that this is an avenue you need to pursue, which is working those muscles, perhaps well, certainly an orthopedic pillow to sleep with. Perhaps you start with the towel, the way we started this episode out today. But you have also car seats. People, if I'm driving my car, you see taxi drivers all the time. If I'm driving my car, most people have their car seat back like this. So if I'm driving my car like this, where's my head and compared to my shoulders? So if I stand up, I'm like this, right? So we drive like this, and it just taxes our muscles so severely. So if your car seat is in some degree of that, bring it forward one click every week, one click a week. And one of the tools to determine how much energy you have to put on your spine is when you get in your car in the morning, sit in the car, put your seatbelt on, put your hands on the steering wheel like you're ready to drive. You'll start the car like you're ready to drive, put your hands on the steering wheel, look in the rear view mirror, adjust the rear view mirror so that the top of the rear view mirror sees the top of the rear window, so that you're not seeing above the rear window to the back of the car, you know, the inside of the car. So you adjust that rear view mirror so you see the top of the window at the top of the mirror. Then at the end of the day, when you get back in your car at the end of the day after work, get in your car, put your seatbelt on, start the car, put your hands on the steering wheel, and look at the rear view mirror. Do you have to adjust the rear view mirror? If you do, it means that you've shrunk during the day, probably from sitting all day, that you've lost a little bit of water in your discs, and you're maybe a quarter inch, a half inch shorter than you were at the beginning of the day. And then when you go to sleep at night, you're laying down and your discs rehydrate again. And so you would, you know, you see the rear view mirror has to be adjusted again the next morning. If you have that situation, that means yoga would be really good for you. Really good. Long-term yoga, not one session a week, but as you practice it, just start really gently. Doesn't matter if you can touch your knees, let alone touch the floor. Doesn't matter where you're at when you start. What matters is that you consistently are working it a little bit, working it a little bit. And over the weeks and over the months, you're now way past touching your knees. You're almost down. Oh, look, I touched the floor. You know, you'll see the subtle improvements, which means your spine is getting more elastic. And then 3 months, 4 months, 6 months down the road, you're going to check, you're going to get in your car, put on your seatbelt. Oh, I think I'll check that mirror thing. And you adjust your rear view mirror so the top of the mirror is with the top of the back window. You go to work, and at the end of the day, you get in your car to drive home, and you say, oh, cool, my mirror's the same. It means you didn't shrink during the day. It means you just haven't lost their hydration, that your spine is more flexible, more pliable, and there's more circulation occurring during the day. Michelle, anything you want to add to that?
Thank you. That was super fascinating. There's a program called EGOSCU. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
So it's spelled EGOSCUE, and it was designed to like personalize exercises. So they have this camera that looks at what's out of alignment, and then they assign you exercises, and it's usually within 10 to 12 sessions. You can completely realign your body, and so many people like have amazing results with this. But it's not in every city, but you can, I think, go to DRTOMOBRYANGLUTENFREE and just read the testimonials. It's pretty amazing, and just see if there's one in your area. They can actually do it via Zoom, which is kind of amazing to think about. But if there isn't one, then maybe you can work remotely.
Would you spell that URL again?
Yeah. So EGO, EGO, and then SCUE, and it's pronounced EGOSCU. And it's a method. So, I mean, like everything, chiropractic, massage, yoga, physical therapy, all these things can be just so helpful Egoscue is kind of like a combination of all that, but really personalized to your body misalignment, whatever is, you know, and they have you do exercises, but it's in addition, think about that car thing. Think about these positions we're in all day, because we can, you know, just you talking about that, I'm like, posture, Michelle, you know, because so often we're stressed and our shoulders are living up here by our ears, right? So there's
Right.
little things that we can just do, but I just wanted to add that program can be
Well,
great.
that's fabulous because no one is symmetrical. If you've got musculoskeletal aches, you're not symmetrical, which means one side it's easier to do something than the other side. And if you're doing both sides the same, what happens is you can create more of a distortion. So this concept that you're referring to is a great one because they may say something like, and I'm going to make it up. You know, they'll say, well, your right arm doesn't go back as far as the left arm does. So really think more on that right side. Pull that shoulder down, pull it back, let's squeeze a little bit more there than you do on the left. You know, it sounds like that's a program that is looking for the asymmetries in your body, which is very cool. Very cool. We've got Gracie here from Argentina. Hello, Gracie. And we have Ellen Mari here from Norway. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Llewellyn Joy Miller Guerra is watching. Carrie says, if we were to get one of the Zoomers, who will read the results? If just trying to get a diagnosis, which one would you recommend starting with? Michelle?
Me. I will read the results, which I love. And I'm going to share screen. I saw this one coming. And I'm going to just show these and just kind of walk you through my thought process on this. But I love that you ask because it's such a great question. So in order to get the significantly reduced price, you need to order at least 4 tests. So the first one that everyone wants to order is wheat. And some of you are thinking, but I don't eat wheat. I don't eat gluten. Why do I want to order wheat Zoomer? Because it's a report card to see how well your gluten and wheat-free lifestyle is working. And over 90% of the people that I meet with that are thinking that they're gluten and wheat-free still have elevated antibodies. So you want to see, like, is this working? Is it enough? Or do I need to step it up and make sure that even my skincare and shampoo and conditioner and chapstick and lipstick and toothpaste, do you know that a lot of the toothpaste out there is not gluten-free, and that can still be preventing you from fully healing? So that gives us so much insight. Plus it has the most advanced intestinal permeability panel available. So we'll do a deep dive on that. That's where we spend the most time. And then the rest of the test, I think it can be helpful to know, like, what are you eating? What are you most concerned about? And Dairy Zoomer is one that I highly recommend. I highly recommend Lectin Zoomer. Because there's quite a few things that show up on the Neural Zoomer Plus that can be linked to lectin aquaporin sensitivity. So those tests, corn Zoomer, there's a corn wheat overlap epitope, and some people went gluten-free, started eating tons of corn, and that corn is tricking the body into thinking it's still getting exposed to wheat, and it's what's lighting up your wheat Zoomer and preventing you from healing. And it's so many different peptides of corn that they're looking at. Plus, both corn and soy have an antigen to show if you're reacting to the genetically modified portion of that food. And most soy and corn, unfortunately, at least in the US, is GMO crops. Egg Zoomer, tons of egg sensitivity. I also see quite a bit of nut because everyone switched out from cow dairy to almond milk, and then all the paleo treats with the almond flour, and they have intestinal permeability and they're powering down the almonds. We've all done it. So I see quite a bit of that. You know, peanut, if you're not willing to give up peanuts, then do a peanut Zoomer. But when I look at peanuts, peanuts are so full of aflatoxins. They're such a problematic food that if you are not healthy and well, then just leave out peanuts because it's just not worth it. Now, if you've given up cow dairy, but you want to know if you can have goat or sheep or camel's milk, that's mammalian milk zoomer. And grain zoomer, so you've eliminated gluten, and you want to know, is it safe for you to have rice or quinoa or what are some of the other buckwheat, teff, then that's grain zoomer. So, but probably my top, if I was to pick 4, and I want to hear your top 4 too, Dr. Tom. Like wheat zoomer is top 1. It's just a non-negotiable. It always gets ordered because we would need to see if your intestinal permeability is 30-fold out of range or 2-fold out of range. That's really important. Don't listen to these people that just say, well, everyone has intestinal permeability, because it's just not true, right? And then not everybody has the same level. A lot of people have intestinal permeability because of all the chaos going on in our food supply. And there's so many contributors to intestinal permeability, right, Dr. Tom? I mean, stress, alcohol, genetically modified food, over-the-counter meds, prescription meds.
Yeah, here's a point on that, that if you have a intestinal permeability that comes back 30-fold out of range, and you apply all these principles, these guidelines, and 6 months or a year later, you do it again, and you've got an intestinal permeability that's positive, it's 5-fold out of range. It's easy to think, oh, this isn't working, I still got a problem. No, it was 30-fold out of range. You're getting better.
We're celebrating.
Take a while, right? So that you monitor your improvement levels. And if you're not improving, something's wrong with the protocol you're doing. You're missing something. So my top ones would be wheat, dairy, lectin, and corn, if I had to pick 4. And actually it's wheat, zoomer, neural zoomer plus, but that's not part of the packages. Michelle, is it part of any of the packages?
No, it's a separate test.
It's a separate test, but critically important in my book is wheat zoomer and neural zoomer plus. And to get the discount for the food test, wheat, corn, lectin, and dairy. Those are the top 4 that I would look at. Depending on someone's lifestyle, if they're eating eggs 4 or 5 times a week, maybe it would be more important to do eggs than corn. But if they're gluten-free and they're eating something made with corn pasta or corn breads 2, 3, 4 times a week, then I may want to do the corn. So it depends on the individual and their lifestyle.
Right, and if you can afford to do 5 of them, the egg zoomer is a really valuable add, definitely. And then for the bonuses, let's see here's the bonus test. So this neural zoomer has 9 antigens, so it's 18 antibodies, but it's because it's IgA and IgG. So it's looking at 9 different antigens, where the neural zoomer plus is looking at 48. So you're getting so much more information. This has 1 marker neural zoomer of blood-brain barrier permeability, where the neural zoomer plus has 4. So if you can afford to do the neural zoomer plus, go for that. And if you can't, then neural zoomer can be helpful to kind of sleuth out, even those 9, if anything's out of range there. It can be a lot more motivating to really get the gluten out. Food additives is a great add-on because I was a little cocky, Dr. Tom, because I don't eat processed food. And I'm like, my food additives is going to come back perfectly clean. And I had sorbitol elevated, and my toothpaste had sorbitol in it, and BPA, because we're just like bombarded with BPA. It's coding cash register receipts. It's, I'm like, no more plastic water bottles for me. Not worth it, right? Even when I'm traveling. So it just can be really enlightening that, we're still getting exposed to things that are activating our immune system. And if we really focus on getting those out, it can really help with healing. IBS, sure, if you think you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, that can be a really important screening tool. The breath test is difficult to do, and it's often unreliable. The sensitivity and specificity, or the accuracy, I've heard is about 50%. So that can be a tough one. And then food sensitivity 1 and 2, these are panels that are looking at the whole protein structure of the food. If you've got a lot of intestinal permeability, you're likely going to be sensitive to a lot of different foods. So I usually recommend holding off on food sensitivity 1 and 2 till we get a wheat zoomer, see what your level of intestinal permeability, see what's going on with some of these other big foods, corn, lectins, eggs, soy, dairy, right? Because I have yet to have anyone come back to me, Dr. Tom, and be like, Michelle, I eliminated zucchini and it's amazing. Like, I'm healed. My Lyme went away. All the mold issues went away, endometriosis cleared. It hasn't happened, right? So these foods become collateral damage. And if you have extreme intestinal permeability, you may be sensitive to 60 of the 96 foods. And now we're down to 36 foods. And what if we pull out those 60? How soon before you become sensitive to those 36, right? So that intestinal permeability, we're going to talk about food rotations, lots of variety, not eating eggs every morning for breakfast. You wonder why you have an egg sensitivity and you're literally eating eggs and processed food all day long and eating eggs every morning for breakfast, and you've got intestinal permeability. So that's kind of an overview. What else do you want to add to this, Dr. Tom?
I think that's a really great overview. And what you demonstrate, Michelle, is that diagnosis is an art. It's an investigative art with the individual. You know, everyone's going to be a little different. There are some common principles to begin with, like Wheat Zoomer, Neural Zoomer Plus are the two big ones for us to begin with. But then it depends on the individual as to where do you go from there in your examination. And as you were talking, I was thinking that for so many people out there, just listening to this is a paradigm shift. This is a different way of thinking. This is like, all right, do a blood test, tell me what's wrong, what to take, so I'm going to be better. And it often doesn't work that way. You know, there are so many pieces of the puzzle that have to be addressed. You go for the big offenders first, and you knock those out, you get those out of there, you work on and address the intestinal permeability. 6 months or a year later, you say, you know what, I'm doing so much better than I was. I forgot how bad I was until I looked at my notes, and I'm doing so much better, but I still have this and this and this. And then you can dive down into some of the nitpicky stuff. But you don't start with food panel 1 for 90 foods or food panel 2. It's just too overwhelming when it comes back and you're sensitive to 30 foods. You know, it doesn't give us the most bang for the buck.
Right, exactly. It can be really helpful though down the road if we're still not getting complete healing, and then we find out they're sensitive to maybe 5 things, and coconut's one of them, and they're having coconut yogurt every day and cooking in coconut oil,
Right.
like too much coconut. Then we can take a break from coconut, allow the body to reset, and then add coconut back in. But that's when I find those tests really helpful.
Lynn Trock says hello. She says, hey, Dr. Tom and Michelle, it's toasty here in Phoenix today. So glad I can catch you today. Thanks, Lynn. Lynn's been coming on Facebook Lives for since we began, I think. And I never remember if Lynn is actually, if she has a brother named Bruce. Bruce Trock was one of my best friends in high school. And Bruce was really important to me in my life. And he had a sister named Lynn, an older sister. So maybe this is Lynn. If it is, hi, Lynn. And if it's not, hi, Lynn. Either way. Shanquila asked the question, can you get glutened from intercourse, intimacy? And I don't know, actually. I've never seen a study. I've never seen a semen analysis of the proteins in semen checked for wheat or peptides of wheat. So I don't really know. But I do know I remember I was giving, this was 2008 when I did 26 cities in 2008, an 8-hour talk on gluten. That's when I really launched the whole gluten sensitivity thing, was 2008 in 26 different cities. And in Boston, this doctor came up to me at the break in a wheelchair and told me that she was so gluten sensitive that if her boyfriend kissed her after he had had a sandwich 2 hours earlier, because he wasn't gluten sensitive, or he didn't think he was, and if he kissed her 2 hours later, she'd pass out. She'd pass out. And that this happened regularly to her, where she was passing out and never knew why. Then she found out she was a celiac and eliminated wheat and was doing pretty well with it. But back in 2008, the gluten-free foods were contaminated as much as they were now, but we didn't know back then that they were contaminated. And she had a real problem, but it always struck with me that, and when he was going to propose to her, he came to meet her for dinner, or I'm not sure what the event, but he came with a wheelchair, so that in case she was so startled, that she could sit. He had her sit in a wheelchair to propose to her, and it was because of wheat sensitivity. She would pass out if she had an exposure. So I don't know about the semen content for peptides of wheat. I don't know that. I do know that semen contains a lot of bacteria, a lot of viruses, and that's something that women have never really thought about or been told before. But the ejaculations don't just contain sperm, they contain a lot of other things. And this is kind of an awkward topic for a general audience, but because someone asked, so you really want to consider some detoxing. If you're a single person and have had some partners, uh, there's a whole world that you want to look at about detoxing just to help clean your body up. Michelle, anything you want to add to that one?
No, I think it's not an awkward thing to talk about. I think it's important. It shows respect for your partner, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a good thing. And if there's kissing going on with that intercourse, then yeah, it could be a problem, because we definitely know that if someone eats gluten, certain
Right.
sensitive people have an issue. So yeah.
Okay. Brandy says hello from Louisiana. Uh, let's see. Mary Agnes posted Norman Cousins' book, Anatomy of an Illness. Thank you, MA.
That's a valuable read.
It
Definitely.
really is a great book.
Mhm.
Shanquilo asks, are you all fans of Therasage infrared products, or their products in general? I don't know. Therasage. Michelle, do you know them?
Not familiar with.
Yeah, I guess we're not big fans. We don't know of them. I get,
Our infrared saunas can be really beneficial, and I really recommend going low and slow. So many people are like, I got an infrared sauna and I heated it up to 150 degrees and I went in for 45 minutes and I felt horrible. Well, yeah, most people would. You've got to work up to that. I recommend getting into the sauna, warming up with it, and it's still those infrared waves are still going, still knocking toxins out, and work up to where you actually start sweating. I think that's
right,
really important.
right. Susan says, hi, thanks for doing Facebook Live, actually catching it live, thumbs up. 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was discussion here about the Harmony pendant. I didn't get my question asked before Facebook Live ended. You mentioned a Harmony bracelet and how it stopped ringing in the ears of people you know. I have the Harmony pendant. I looked online to see if they had a bracelet now, but I'm not seeing one. So I think you were referring to a different brand. Would you tell what brand the bracelet is? I have tinnitus and started 8 months ago, and it's driving me crazy. Thanks. Uh, I'm not aware of a Harmony bracelet. Michelle, are you?
Mm-mm.
It was a pendant. It was the pendant that we were talking about, the gold necklace kind of thing. Um, And
I would do wheat zoomer though, because the connection in the literature between tinnitus and gluten is really strong.
I published an article with a group of ear, nose, and throat specialists out of Milan, Italy, in 2016, I think it was, maybe 15, I'm not sure, about reversing ringing in the ears on a gluten-free diet. So absolutely do the wheat zoomer. If it started 8 weeks ago, it's still or 8 months ago, it's still fresh for you, and you should be able to make an impact on that. Diane says, dental digital panogram x-ray showed inflammation in the sinus lining. What could be causing this? Any suggestions to treat it? Sure. What are you breathing that's inflammatory? Do you live near a freeway? Do you have mold in your house? Do you have lead in your house? Have you had your house tested? You're breathing something, so your sinuses are inflamed. Also, if you have mucus, mucus loves to hang out in your sinuses. They're like these cavities, you know, these like little wells where mucus can just pool up in there, and it just hangs out. And when mucus pools up in your sinuses, you're a walking human petri dish. And bacteria love mucus. So if you have mucus with that inflammation, that's more likely food sensitivity related. And that's where the Zoomers come into play. Michelle, anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I mean, it could be some kind of mark-ons that would show up on a mark-ons test, like chronic infection, staph infection. It could, I mean, food sensitivities, absolutely. Yeah, find out what the root cause. And again, if somebody on the team could post the link for Air Doctor, like that, sure that you have that Air Doctor in your room so that the air you're breathing, that 8 hours while you're sleeping. And if you're working from home or you're home on the weekend, bring it into another room. It's fairly lightweight and portable, and plug it in wherever you are, and just keep the air that you're breathing as pure as possible, and try to make your home as much as an oasis as you can. So if we walk through a park, which can be really healing, and they just spray glyphosate, Roundup all over the place, we bring shoes into the house, you know, wear shoes in the house, we're bringing that glyphosate in and traipsing it all over our house, right? So leave shoes at the door, change what you're washing your clothes in to the least toxic. What are the soap? I should know this because I use it.
Bronner's? Dr. Bronner's?
No, it's the I think that it's on the that page of your favorite products on the website, but it's a really great soap that's super non-toxic that I love.
My Green Fill.
My Green Fills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great product. There's other great products. I just love that one. It's really easy to use, and you're not filling up landfills with all the plastic and a lot of these big plastic water bottles, you know, with all of the soaps. The soap that you use, I was just thinking the other day, boy, I miss that toxic soap because it sure does bubble and cut the grease, but I don't want those toxins in my house. So I keep using this non-toxic soap, and it's not quite as effective, but hey, my health is worth it, right? But just what you clean your house with, white vinegar, like just look around your house, go through each room, like the skincare we use, all those scents that the lotions that you think is like making you smell pretty is likely full of paraben that can cause breast cancer. So just one room at a time, you know, start with the laundry room or start with the kitchen and just go room by room and at least make sure that your house is a really safe place for you.
Diane said, my only health issue is blood pressure tends to run high and I struggle to lower it. Okay. If you're asking for a comment, when you say that, you only need one thing to be a problem in order for it to be a major problem. When you say my only health issue is blood pressure, that may be because your friends have 4 or 5 issues going on. They got blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, or their brain's not working so well, or you know, whatever it should be in. I may be misinterpreting what you're saying, Diane, but I would not minimize the importance of high blood pressure. And if you're struggling to lower it, you need some help. You need someone to work with who can help you investigate what's causing the high blood pressure to get it lowered. And that's where Michelle comes in, our clinical services department comes in. That's what we do. But please don't minimize the importance of having high blood pressure and addressing it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just the fact that you know it's an issue is so powerful, because one of the leading causes of death for women is cardiovascular issues. And that's one of the components, right? To let us know that your cardiovascular health isn't optimal. So don't let it slide. Don't say, oh, it's a genetic issue. My mom had this, my grandma had this. Like, find a functional medicine practitioner and figure out what your root cause is to turn this around, because this is the time to turn it around.
Kim asks, is there any treatment for spinal stenosis after surgery? Really good question. And yes, there is. There's a type of stretching, it's called flexion distraction. And the main proponent who's been teaching thousands of doctors in the last 40 years is James Cox, C-O-X. And so he's called it Cox Flexion Distraction. And Dr. Cox is a chiropractor. He's trained literally thousands of people in this technique. And it's a table. You lay down on the table. They put straps around the ankles so they're secure. Some gentle traction it out just a little bit. And then they just push down on the bottom half of the table while they have their hand on your back, and they're just gently stretching your back. It's how I started my practice. And Cox learned it from an osteopath named McManus. And I actually bought a McManus flexion distraction table when I was in my education. And it was our sofa in our living room. You know, there's no back to it, but, you know, we just put an Indian blanket over it, and that's where we would sit, you know. And, but then I would traction my wife, you know, practicing with her. Then my friends would come over because they heard I had a Cox table. And it was a cool table. It weighed over 500 pounds. I mean, it was a monster table, porcelain base, really chrome on it. You know, it was nice. But I've treated hundreds and hundreds of people with the McManus table, and Cox improved on the design of the tables and then taught thousands of doctors over his career about flexion distraction. It's great for the neck also. There's an attachment to do it for the neck, and the usual approaches for the low back. And yes, about 30% of people with spinal stenosis will avoid surgery with Cox Flexion Distraction. But if you've already had surgery, you just need someone who's certified in using that technique. So look up James Cox, C-O-X. He was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I'm sure their website has a list of certified doctors who've gone through all the training and passed all the exams and know how to use that. You bet. It can make a substantial difference. Quincy says, hey, hopping on late, I was grabbing groceries. Any tips to improve circulation in my feet? Well, that's a really hard one, Quincy, because the question is, why is there reduced circulation in your feet? So the tip is to think like Sherlock Holmes. Find someone to work with who can investigate for you. Where's this coming from? It could be a low back problem. It could be a vascular problem. There's so many, it could be an inflammation problem. To shotgun is really dangerous, you know, because you might get temporary relief, but the problem continues and then it explodes somewhere else with another set of symptoms that are much worse. So you have to find out, why is the circulation compromised in my feet? Is it diabetes? Where's it coming from?
Yeah, blood sugar. Could be blood sugar and NeuroZoomer Plus, that whole section on peripheral neuropathy. It could be antibodies that are impacting. So really having, like, figuring out your root cause. If you want to, like, rule out blood sugar, get a glucometer and test your blood sugar first thing when you wake up. And then 2 hours after random meals or snacks. Anytime you eat, you'd never want your blood sugar to be above 140 2 hours after you eat. If it is, then that meal was too high glycemic. There was too many sugars and carbs. And that's a fairly inexpensive way to kind of track this. Now, I'm a big fan of getting blood tests and fasting glucose and insulin and hemoglobin A1C and glycomark and working with somebody to see, is this blood sugar dysregulation? Because we see hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia, and neither one of them are good.
Right. There actually is a new device that's coming out. In the beta test, they had like 5,000 people using it, I guess, and it's fabulous. It's a patch you put on your arm, and it monitors your blood sugar to your cell phone. It'll give you your blood sugar any time of day. And so when you're exercising, with every meal you eat, you can tell what's happening to my sugar levels all day long. And it's extremely valuable information to get. Extremely valuable. As soon as it's available, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah, the continuous blood sugar reading on the back of your arm. So much insight, Dr. Tom, because people don't realize that stress plays a role in this. And so they find out that when they get up in front to present at work, that their blood sugar spikes because of the cortisol, the stress hormone that's being released in that time. So you really get to get nuanced with what it is that's triggering it for you and imbalancing and unstabilizing it. And that's foundational. Keeping that stable blood sugar is foundational for wellness.
Critically important. Amal asked the question, any thoughts about Swiss Mountain Clinic for summer 2022 yet? Well, they're really hoping. They have patients now, but for us in 2022, it depends. It really depends on what travel is going to be like. If we will be there in 2022. Sorry, Mal, I don't know yet. I mean, I'd be happy to schedule it right now, but with the inconsistencies in governments right now, and what kind of regulations are going to have to allow people to enter the country, I'm not sure what's going to happen yet, so I can't speak to that. MA asks, have you heard about alpha lipoic acid by IV for microcapillary regrowth? Yes. Yeah, it's really quite remarkable and helpful. Alpha lipoic acid is a catalytic nutrient, meaning it activates so many aspects of healing. It's an anti-inflammatory. It stimulates nerve regeneration and nerve growth. And there's some evidence now about capillaries that when you've got a blocked artery, sometimes your body will make a new artery to go around the block. It's called an anastomosis, and it goes around. And alpha lipoic acid seems to help with that, which is really exciting.
The body is amazing.
Let's see. Got that?
What would be an indicator we need neural zoomer?
Aha.
Great question.
Really great question. If you're noticing any aspects of brain function, if you're just noticing, say, well, it's not too bad, but you're noticing, then there's something out of balance. If you're noticing, it could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be memory, it could be processing information, it could be recognizing someone who's walking towards you. Oh, what's that person's name? I know that. What's her name? Any aspect of brain function, that if you're noticing it, because you're not supposed to notice your brain functioning. Nobody's supposed to notice their heart functioning or their liver functioning or their brain functioning. If you're noticing it and, well, it's not too bad, and you're rationalizing it, do the Neural Zoomer Plus. And you will be surprised by what you find, which hopefully is the catalyst to put the time into exploring where is the inflammation coming from, and then getting rid of the triggers of inflammation, whatever they are. Michelle, do you want to add to that one?
I love it when someone's like, I don't have any brain issue. I mean, I think fatigue can be like the main thing. And who do you know that doesn't experience some level of fatigue? It's rampant, right? But I love it when someone comes in and says, you know what? I did this test. I really don't have any symptoms. I just don't want to go down that path because I saw my grandma suffer from Alzheimer's, right? Or it's that prevention where we're able to see, okay, this is where we put our focus to turn this around, right? So it's great when someone can do it preventatively, catch it early, but any of those things that Dr. Tom mentioned, right? That can't forgot where I parked the car, can't find my keys, just that go into another room and can't remember what you went into that room for. All of those things may be symptoms that may have antibodies to some aspect of your brain.
This will be the last question. I've heard systemic enzymes like serrapeptidase and nattokinase help with arterial plaque. That's true. What could be the reason for sweating hands and feet even if it's 30 degrees outside? Really, that's an interesting question. Your sympathetic nervous system is activated. So the question is, why is my sympathetic nervous system activated? And that's the million-dollar question. Is it stress, emotional stress, chemical stress, food stress? Where is the trigger that's causing your fight, flight, or fright response to become activated? That's what your sweating hands and feet are, is a sympathetic nervous system response. So the question is, why is that happening? And there are many reasons. That's when you need an investigator. You know, I'll sound like a broken record, and that is clinical services at theDr.com, you know, and work with Michelle and investigate to figure out where it's coming from. Michelle, anything you want to add to that one?
You covered it. I just can't believe how quickly 70 minutes flies by.
Oh, I know. It's really something. Oh my gosh. Jan says, so nice to be listening to you both again. Jacqueline says, greetings on a sunny morning from the Phils. Phils. Maybe that's the Philadelphias, I don't know, or the Philippines. Oh, it's Jacqueline Hippolito Delata from the Philippines. Thank you. Nice that you're here. Faina asks, is David's toothpaste good to use? I don't know David's toothpaste. Michelle, do you notice David's toothpaste?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Lucy says, if using Biocide to eradicate Sibo, will it act as an antibiotic and destroy both good and bad bacteria? No, it does not attack good bacteria. Different protein structures, very safe, very effective. We've used it for over 30 years. Chris Lennon.
They have a preliminary study going on right now that shows that it's actually increasing keystones like Akkermansia and F. So pretty amazing to think that it's wiping out the guys we don't want there and hoping to grow the ones that we do need. It's an amazing.
Says, I just received the Wellness Mama's toothpaste and I love it. She's awesome. And that's how I found Dr. Tom. All right. Katie's a good friend. We were at Swiss Mountain Clinic together, did some hikes up in the mountains, in the Swiss mountains. That was really great. Let's see. I see the link that takes us to My Green Fills, but can we have the link for Dr. Tom's favorite products, please? That's a good idea to have a link. Our website with recommended products. We'll put that one link for. And thank you for all the hearts, guys. It just makes me feel so good to see all those thumbs up and hearts. So sad that we have to pay so much and do so much just to have healthy products and a healthy life. Amen to that, Carrie. And hopefully we'll be able to change that for our children and our grandchildren. Do you have suggestions for reversing arterial plaque? Yes, there's a lot of things to do. It's not just one thing, my friend. Change your diet, follow everything that we've talked about here. Proteolytic enzymes are really helpful. And with that, we're going to say adios, my friends, until next week. Well, with Michelle, it'll be next month, the first Tuesday of every month. So thank you all so very much for being here tonight. Michelle, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to do this with you.
Thank you, Dr. Tom. I just enjoy it so much. And thanks to everyone for honoring us with your time.
Yes, thank you all. See you next time.